All right, guys, so today we have this 200 Mercury. We're just gonna be doing a full service on it, 100-hour service. So the cool thing about these Mercuries, when you get into the 175s, is up here, to take your cowl off, you just pop this door open, and you got this little red button here, and the handle pops up. When you pop that handle up, that's what releases the cowl, and you just kind of pull it straight off. And then you got everything accessible right here. So over here is your oil filter. You drain the lower unit from behind the prop, so we're gonna have to take that off. You got a fuel filter down here that's changed every 300 hours. Up there is your dipstick and where you put the oil in. So we're just gonna get started and service this thing. So to take off this prop here to get to the lower unit, all you got is this nut right here. It's a 11/16. Alright, so we have this piece of hose right here. We had actually just bought it. It's just a regular piece of hose. And we bought it just so we can fit it over these drain plugs for the motor. That makes it a lot neater. Less cleanup involved. I get this pan out of here right now. So this drain plug is just a 5/8. Take it and crack it. Kind of just spin it. I'm doing this oil first before I do the lower unit. I like to let the lower unit drain out as much as possible while I'm doing everything else. So when this is done, I can just kind of close it and it's pretty much got everything out. While with that lower unit, it takes a while for it to drain. So I like to let it kind of do its thing while I'm doing everything else, replacing the filter and stuff. Alright, so our oil is done draining. So just tighten this back up. Let this hose kind of trickle out of there. Now with these drain plugs here, don't get too carried away with them because they will strip out. So just kind of give it a good little snug right there. There's gonna be some excess dripping out of there. That's fine. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. So don't freak out if you see a little bit of oil coming out, because it's hard to get all of it out. Alright, so right now I am going to dump our oil because we are full on our containers. We just do that right here next to this shop right across the parking lot here. So I kind of just set everything on the back of my tailgate here. You want to make sure you get it all over that handle so it's nice and lubricated up so it'll keep spinning like that. Now this one, there's a lot of extra that sits in the bottom there, so you kind of gotta rock it back and forth. That's good right there. Brand used rag. This up, clean up the container, make sure it's nice and clean. I'm gonna dump this pan. And depending on how many services we do, we'll end up usually dumping all these about once a week, sometimes more, sometimes we don't at all. Put this lid back on. Alright, so next, on these, grabbed the wrong thing. Alright, on these, down here behind the prop, you have these two bolts here. We're going to pop this bottom one first. That's the drain for the lower unit. Pull that out, make sure that washer comes off. Don't want to double stack those. And we'll pop this and it'll come trickling out. So I like to let these drain while I'm doing everything else, because they do take a while. So set these off to the side while that's going. Grab some oil filter wrenches. I think I already brought the oil filter out here. Yeah. These are kind of cool. Here's your oil filter, so when you take it off, if there's any excess oil, it'll drain down into this little pan right here, and you can pop this off like that, and it'll drain out of there. But we'll see what we end up with. I'll pop this filter off. It looks like we're not going to get too much oil down in there. I lied. We're going to get a lot of oil down in there. Take that, dump this out here. Instead of popping that off, I'm just going to use a rag to try and clean up down in there. Get as much as I can. Now when you're changing these filters, on the filter itself, there's a gasket right here. Sometimes they'll stick to this surface right here and you'll pull it off. It's kind of hard to tell, so if you're doing this at home, make sure you check and make sure that your seal didn't stay on there, or else you'll have problems whenever you're putting the new one back on. Well, it'll go on, but it'll leak really bad. I'm gonna pop this, just kind of catch it with a rag. Leave that right there. We'll take this new filter, get a little bit of oil, run around that ring right there. Now also, we used to put grease around these, but when I went to Yamaha training, they said, yeah, don't do that, because that grease will actually, over time, it'll dry up and it'll act like glue. That's done draining out. We'll pop this cover back in. Kind of clean up around here. Make sure this filter's tight. Just hand tighten it. It's on there good. Kind of wipe off everything that's on there. Make it look all pretty. Clean all this off. So we still got our low unit draining. Just gonna keep letting that trickle out. So next, all we need to do is add more oil. This holds 7 quarts. You can see right there. The cool thing about these Mercuries is they kind of give you a maintenance schedule here. So for every 100 hours or once yearly, do oil and filter, gear case lubricant, which is what we're draining out right now. And then every 3 years you do spark plugs, water pump, engine oil and filter, and the lubricant. And then once you replace this drive belt and that fuel filter right there. So right now we're just gonna pop off this oil fill cap. We got two new lower unit drain plug seals. And those we're just going to slide over these bolts right here. Now some of these bolts on the, like on the 150 and down, you actually, so the drain plug is behind the prop, but you actually have a vent up here on the side. That's how a lot of them are, but with these bigger Mercuries, you actually have a drain plug down here and then the vent on this side. It's pretty cool actually. Keeps it in one spot, keeps that side from getting dirty. Here's another fun fact. The 175, the 200, and the 225 Mercury are actually V6s. And when you get into the 250, that's when you go into the V8. But with the Pro XS, the 200 actually turns into a V8, and the 225 is a V8. So when you get into the Pro XS, starting at the 200, it's a V8. But just normal 200s and 225s, they're V6s. It's kind of weird how they do it, but it seems to be working out pretty good for them. Now, like I said, this thing holds 7 quarts. So we got our drain plug tightened up, got our filter on. Just gonna add 7 quarts. We'll watch and make sure we're not leaking down there too, but there we got 4. Now, usually when you're replacing the filter too, they actually take a little bit more than 7 quarts, probably about 7.5 quarts. So we'll put in 3 more quarts, but we're just gonna check it after we put in our 7 quarts. More to go. There we're down to 7 quarts. You got your dipstick right here. I'm gonna wipe it off. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of these dipsticks because they're kind of hard to read. But I'll try and tell you what I know about them. Clean it off first. Make sure it's pushed all the way down. Pull it back out. You can see here it's up to that 3rd ball right there, because this block is still dry. This is coated and you kind of see oil on that 3rd ball. So really we're right in the ballpark, but we still got some draining down into there, so by the time everything gets drained down into there, it should be good to go. Now, like I said, we're gonna, after I get this gear case done, we're going to start it up. And after we start it up and let it run for a minute, get all the oil to the filter and all around, then we'll recheck and we'll go from there. All right, so here's our gear case filler. It's cool. Just pump this handle and that pressurizes it, and you got a little valve here that you turn on and off. It came with a bunch of different fittings, Like this one right here, this is the standard one. It fits mainly all Mercuries, and then this one here fits Yamaha. So you kind of just screw that on there, and then you're ready to fill up a Yamaha. But we just need that one right there because it's for Mercury. So what I like to do is I'll pop this out first, and then I'll screw it in, just like that. Just kind of hand tighten it, finger tighten it, and then we'll push that on there. And we'll just pump this. We'll pump this for a little bit. It's starting to get a little bit firmer, so that's probably about good right there. We'll come over here and we'll flip that little lever right there. And now we're pumping. Now this thing's a little bit old, so it does leak a little bit, but that's fine. Kind of hold it on there, it doesn't leak as bad. But while that's pumping up, we're gonna get our 2 screws here, and then we're waiting for it to fill up and come out of there just like that. So we'll flip that off, and I always like to let it drain out just for a second out of that vent hole, and then give it just a little bit more to make sure I got all the air flushed out of there. And then we'll let that drain to the top of that drain hole right there. And when it's done, we'll start this bolt in. And we'll tighten it up. Now I like to use flat blades on these. If you're using a ratchet, it's a 10 mil. I just like to use these because I feel like I'm a little bit quicker with it, and ratchet kind of gets in the way with the prop shaft there. So we're gonna quickly pull this fitting out, put it back in, grab this bolt, and we're just gonna feed it in there. And when you get it started, it ain't gonna leak. So while that's done, I'm gonna wipe off my hands real quick. I'm gonna release the pressure from that. Take my screwdriver here. And just feed that on there. And you want to make sure they're pretty tight, but you don't want to overdo them. When that's all done, I'm going to take a rag and just kind of spend a little bit of time cleaning this up. Kind of getting between them grooves right there. We got filter replaced, we got our oil back in, we're gonna put our cap back on. We checked our oil, it's ready to start up. We're not leaking out of here, so we got that tight enough. I'm gonna trim this up right here. Now I got that pan out of the way. I'm gonna clean up the mess I made. So next, we're just gonna grease everything on here. So On this steering, we got a fitting right there. Just watch it till it comes out. Have one over here. It's coming out right there. Got one right here. It's coming out. And you got one right back in here. In that steering column. Now this one usually takes a lot, and you're kind of waiting for it to push that water out that's in there. And you'll hear it, this thing firms up pretty good when it gets full. And you can see it coming out down there. That's good right there. So after we got all greased, you could see it coming out right there. That's what we're looking for. But next, we got some 2,4-C grease with Teflon. Just gonna run a bead along there, put a little bit on there. And I'm gonna just take my finger and kind of rub it all around that shaft. Kind of get in all those splines there. Now we got our prop shaft greased. We're gonna take our prop and we're just gonna slide it on like that. And we got 3 washers. It's a big washer and 2 small ones. Got our lock nut there. We'll get it started on there. We'll take our impact. Make sure it's tight on there just like that. Now, got this thing fully serviced. And we just need to fire it up. So if you're running these bigger motors, the 175 and up out of water, you need this little piece right here. And what that does is it covers this low water pickup. If you don't cover it, what it's gonna do is you ain't gonna be pumping water, or at least it ain't gonna be coming out of the pee hole. So I got that on. We got our hose here. I'm gonna slide this on, just like that. Move all our stuff away. Turn it on. There, we got our water on. Just gonna come, make sure it's in neutral. Got our lanyard on. We're just gonna so we're peeing out of the hole there, which is good. Means we're pumping water. We're just gonna let this sit and run for a minute. So it's ran for a minute. And the reason we do that is so we can let all that new oil work its way around, fill up that filter, and then we'll be able to get an accurate reading. See if we need to add any more oil or take some out. pull that off, unclip that. So what I like to do is, after we run it, I like to trim it all the way up, let it sit there for a minute, give it 15-20 seconds. And then after, trim it right back down to where it's about level. Right about there. We'll just wait for that oil to settle down. While we're doing that, we're gonna clean up a little bit. Put that there for it to be thrown away. Just lay my wrench right here for now. Come put this socket back. And like I said, we're just gonna check that oil one more time. And then we'll be good to go. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of these dipsticks. It's because they're hard to read. I don't really clean off too well, but dip it back down in there. Make sure it's pushed down all the way. Pull it back out. We're right up to this second ball right here. It's just perfect. It's exactly where we want it. So that's it for servicing one of these. Only thing left we got to do is take this cowl and pop it back on. And it kind of it'll find its way down in there. You know you're done it right if you push this down and it locks in. Otherwise it won't lock in. And then just to double check, I come make sure this gap's even all the way around. And give it a nice little tug there, and it ain't going nowhere. Last thing to do is write up a bill and he'll be on his way.